This content is brought to you by iTrust Capital, which is a great platform that allows you to easily invest in crypto without worrying about taxes or fees. iTrust Capital allows you to invest in crypto through an individual retirement account or IRA. IRAs are tax sheltered accounts, which means all of your crypto is tax-free and can even grow tax-free over time. The process of signing up with iTrust Capital is very easy. They have a mobile app. They have 25 plus cryptocurrencies. They have full support, a dedicated team ready to help you. And it is free. And once again, 100% free to sign up with iTrust Capital. There are no hidden fees and there's no monthly subscription or membership. They also have great security. They utilize Coinbase custody for all their custodial services. So you don't have to worry. It is institutional grade crypto custody that they are using. This is a great platform. Once again, it is free to sign up. So visit the link in the description and go check it out. If you sign up with my link, you get a $100 funding bonus. So once again, check the link in the description. Welcome back to the Thinking Crypto podcast, your home for cryptocurrency news and interviews. With me today is Congressman Pete Sessions, who represents Texas's 17th Congressional District. Congressman, it's an honor to have you on the show.
Thank you very much. It's an amazing thing of not only this investment opportunity, but really the future for so many people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have a lot of questions about what you folks are doing down in Texas around Bitcoin and crypto and the booming of the mining industry there. But I would love to get to know you a bit better. Can you tell us about your background, where you're from, where'd you grow up?
Sure. Perhaps it's interesting. I grew up in Waco, Texas, which is where I live. I had an opportunity to grow up in a family with an older brother, a little brother. My dad was a federal judge for many years and became FBI director for President Reagan, President Bush, and President Clinton. Offered me an opportunity to see a lot of the interesting impact of government and the interworkings. Spent 16 years at AT&T, was in our marketing department, did really well. Ended up 3.5 years at Bell Labs in New Jersey, which was the research and development arm of the Bell operating companies in the mid-'80s in New Jersey, and was on the original Bell Labs team that invented broadband. And had a chance then to come back to Texas. Ran for Congress, served for 22 years, chairman of the National Republican Congressional Committee and chairman of the House Rules Committee for 6 years, 13 to 19. And now we're in the minority and serving as one of the senior guys on the Financial Services Committee, which has jurisdiction over much of what we're speaking about with cryptocurrency.
Yeah, absolutely. So what was your first encounter with Bitcoin and crypto, and do you personally hold any Bitcoin?
Yeah, in fact, a full year ago, my wife and I, visiting a friend in Puerto Rico, became very interested in this. We bought Ethereum, and I believe we still hold Ethereum. And then I became a little bit more what I would call engaged in it. Riot Blockchain, which is down in Milam County, Texas, which is in the congressional district that I serve, down in Rockdale, Texas, has the largest Bitcoin mining operation in the country at an old Alcoa plant that is there. And we became firsthand observers, interested in it. And of course, Chad Harris there is leading edge, not only about talking about Bitcoin, but the entire revolution that is underneath this with the blockchain, with the advancement of investment in energy, green energy, and an opportunity to create jobs and investment for so many people. I mean, the essence of this is, I don't know if I'm your typical guy or not that buys this, but we have made a mess, meaning perhaps this older generation, of the dollar. And right now, inflation is rampant, and the stability of the dollar is unhinged. We're in chaos economically in this country. And we're in chaos with the social programs that might be considered like Social Security. And so the uncertainty of all this has led many people to believe that them owning their own investment, having charge of their own investment, and a daily opportunity, not just with Ethereum, but other sorts of maybe cryptocurrency, perhaps it's Bitcoin, offers them an opportunity to not have it robbed, but rather the market presence be the advantage. So I, as a senior member of the Financial Services Committee, I began looking into it. I think it's the future. I think it's exciting, and I will tell you, it's here to stay.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point, there are a lot of economic issues at hand right now, and folks are diversifying into cryptocurrencies and digital assets as, I mean, like you said, like a way of maybe preserving wealth and their, some of their assets, other assets, which, may be tied to the dollar, and inflation and all of those things are hurting that. Texas has been in the lead, I personally think, in cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin mining and so forth. And I have spoken to the folks at Riot, Windstone, and Chad Harris, and they talked about their operations. It's just massive. What are some incentives that Texas is offering to these crypto businesses to help foster innovation? And look, I know it's a state competition as well, but what are some of the incentives that you're all are offering?
Well, in fact, the success of a rain dance has a lot to do with timing and ability. Texas has things that other states don't have, and one of them is a mentality that we're not trying to tax everything. And secondly, we have people who have a mindset that is more towards pioneer and building and being successful, rather than building a darn big government that's expensive and takes your money. And so a lot of it is an attitude that Texas comes with that, quite honestly, New York does not, and many states do not. Texas has been open. Our governor, Greg Abbott, and I think other people have been open to saying, we want and need to understand a lot about your business, but see that the attributes of what you're trying to do, the creation of jobs, the opportunity for you to come into our grid system and make investments in that, and to make it a green investment without the government having to do that, to making sure that our grid system has reliability, to come and do business with us in a way that would be advantageous for not just local communities, but also the people of Texas, which is the ultimate test that needs to go on. And we in Texas simply viewed this was a great opportunity, as opposed to other places that have made sure you're not welcome. And those welcome or unwelcome signs are very apparent. So a lot of people have moved to Florida, which, much like Texas, has a viewpoint about the future. And that's because of the governor, Ron DeSantis, as the leading advocate for tomorrow. The one thing that I have learned, which I can proudly state as a result of knowing more about this, and I've had this idea for the longest time, but we need to run to our future, not be afraid of it. We need to run to our future with great admiration for hard work and ingenuity and people who are willing to put their own money at risk. But we're not going to find ourselves in a circumstance where we're simply trying to make the government bigger or the government richer. This is a system of not just Bitcoin, but also the underlying values from it, the blockchain, that offer reliability, that offer opportunity and security. And so all these things added together make it a good deal.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to get your thoughts on energy companies looking to mine Bitcoin now. It seems like there is a huge incentive to do that, and they will take like the excess energy to mine Bitcoin and monetize that wasted energy or whatever it may be. Have you seen or any energy companies in Texas looking to do this?
It's important to note that much of what we have is anecdotal evidence because it's being built right now.
Sure.
Certainly in Milam County and Rockdale, Riot Blockchain, the great Chad Harris, is putting together plans and building out what would be an opportunity for green environment electricity to become available to him on site. A lot of it. That would not only take care of his operations from an environmentally sensitive perspective, but also that when he had time, he would introduce that into the grid. His investment in this means that government does not have to do that. We have many scenarios that are just like that with toll roads all across this country that turn up overnight. It might cost you a little bit more, but it's available. The investment of dollars is something that states that the national government is having trouble getting done. This is people putting their own money into a green system, whether it be a wind generated or whether it be solar power generated, and turning that into, especially during peak hours, an opportunity to sustain the grid. Now, why is this important in Texas? Texas has its own grid, and by and large, all of Texas, not exactly true. El Paso is a little bit out, some other places a little bit out of it. But we're in a growth pattern. We're in a growth pattern that is unparalleled. Washington State, Oregon, Washington are losing population. That population is moving eastward. A lot of it to Florida, a lot of it to Nevada, but a bunch of it to Texas. So rather than government or private industry necessarily having to raise their rates to pay for this, we're seeing that people who have a good bit of money and interest in a new operation, and it's called Bitcoin, are providing a lot of electric generation that is spare to them.
Yeah, it's amazing to see all the innovation that's happening around energy with Bitcoin mining and so forth. I want to get your thoughts on the federal government's stance on crypto, because there are a lot of folks in the industry who are still waiting for clarity, particularly specifically from the SEC. And President Biden just a few months back did pass the crypto executive order. What are your thoughts on how things can move a bit faster in getting clarity for the market and, you know, getting a Bitcoin spot ETF approved and things along those lines?
Well, in fairness, the president, and I'm not trying to take you on, didn't pass anything. He signed an executive order, which is an order which I thought offered some clarity in addressing the issue. And essentially, he asked government-wide, please tell me your ideas. Please tell me how you might view it. Please tell me what questions need to abound. And so it was really, I think, an interesting and important step. And I'll even give the president credit, and a thoughtful step. We need to be prepared for how government would want to look at it. Well, the same thing is true of Congress. We write laws.
Right.
We are the ones that put together the essence of the policy. And when we fail to do that, that means the government will. That means Article 2 as opposed to Article 1 of the Constitution. So what I would say is that government inherently has a different viewpoint of it than, say, the free enterprise system or maybe Capitol Hill. There are Republicans and Democrats. There's a whole bunch in between and outside that also. And as you have seen, some of the lines have been drawn off extraneous issues, maybe use of electricity, maybe making of money, maybe taxation, maybe rules and regulations. And this is where it's important for members of Congress like myself to understand the industry, to be clear that we really want and need it, not just to survive, but thrive. We want it here in America, not just in Texas. That we want to view that it is another generation's opportunity to have what I believe is, I don't want to use the word safety and soundness, but I do want to say the word controllable, understood, and professional. Whether something goes up or down is based upon the market, not based upon whether government reached their hand in and made decisions about it. Today, much of what I would say this cryptocurrency is investment driven. When you have an investment, and there are rules and regulations for that, an investment, when you take an investment out, unless it is in an IRA or a qualified savings plan, you pay taxes on it.
Yep.
So almost every single thing in cryptocurrency, almost everything, is considered an investment. And so it becomes taxable about when you take it out. So if you just switch it around in the system, that probably even would be a taxable event. So the problem is that on large amounts, it's probably less of an issue, but it becomes a burdensome challenge if you were to use it every day to do your things. That means you'd need a ledger every day. You'd have to go to the IRS every day. You'd have to every quarter to write the IRS a check. You'd have to account for it. So it is an issue. Secondly, if you go high enough, Republicans do not believe in taxing savings or investment. Republicans would like to allow you to put your own investment in, your own dollars, whatever you make, keep. I mean, at some point, you have to report this, but that you don't have to pay taxes off every single increment. But that is certainly not where another party is. The Democratic Party is big into, as the president said, he wants to raise taxes an extreme amount, the largest tax increase in the history of the universe. That's what Democrats want. So unfortunately, it is political. Republicans that are on the Hill believe that we will win the election. We will take back the majority in the House, perhaps, I believe, also in the Senate, and we would drive the rules and regulations governing how this would be looked at. I believe we need to look at it to where it needs to survive, but it also has to be very consistent with what we expect from other investments. So that causes a drag off a lot of things, but I feel very confident that Republicans, I know I am, we're up to the task.
Yeah, I think a lot of folks are getting a bit frustrated and waiting for clarity, and hopefully maybe this year or early next year we can get some clear regulations, because there is a global competition. And you mentioned keeping this innovation here in the United States, but look, China is doing their thing, and other countries as well. And we want the entrepreneurs, we want the folks who are building the future tech to be in the United States. Part of the global competition and under unfortunate situations with Russia and Ukraine, we saw Ukraine started adopting crypto, accepting crypto donations and things like that. It's once again under unfortunate scenarios, but what are your thoughts on that adoption? It's almost like the war was, or the invasion was, a catalyst for them to do that.
Well, there are a lot of things about governments, and there are a lot of things about communist nations. Communist nations tend to want to control everything. Mm-hmm. They don't allow free enterprise. They want to dig in your pocket. They actually want to own it themselves. But the war was a catalyst for understanding the transfer of wealth from a rather substantially large, Ukraine's about 30 million people, or at least was. It was an old Russian satellite. It is a place that is very healthy from a perspective of agriculture and other perspectives in and out of Russia. But in fact, it became very apparent of how a government could unilaterally act. We've seen the same thing with China. China does the same thing. China has treated other companies these same ways. They control them. We in the United States, in particular in Texas, tend to be for less control and more for the sovereignty of that company. We expect that company to be honest and reliable. We are not for shenanigans, whether it be fraud or whether it be deception or sticking it to people because they are the owner. And we believe we get a better product. So what I would say is that as it has boomed in Texas and boomed across the world, Texas, Florida, perhaps some other places have become the leading edge capitals of that currency.
Yeah. And, you guys are certainly leading the charge, and hopefully other states, they start to follow your model and your lead and get on board, because, there are talks of entrepreneurs leaving the United States because they don't have the clarity, but hopefully we can get that right at a federal level soon.
Well, I don't want to challenge you, but I've not heard that, because I believe we're attracting people, the stability that we have, the indications that there are people like myself on financial services. We know we've got a senator or two senators who are very willing to take this on. Now, you also have advocates on the other side. You have detractors. You have organizations, Sierra Club, perhaps others. Senator Warren have created what I would say dark clouds for the success of this. But ultimately, she can become where she is when we come up with what we believe is the framework, what we believe is a reasonable and rational way to look at this. But it should be on the side of stability, should be on the side of encouraging this, and it should be on the side of allowing it to grow and flourishing for our future.
Now, the governments and central banks around the world are working on central bank digital currencies. And here in the United States, there's talks of a digital dollar. I've spoken to Congressman Tom Emmer, former CFTC chairman Chris Giancarlo about this. And this is in the works. We're headed to that fully digital world, the digital economy. What are your thoughts now that the dollar is going to be tokenized on the blockchain? And do you see this being as something good? Could it help curb some of the inflation issues that we've dealt with historically in the old system? What are your thoughts around that?
Well, the dollar will still be pegged to the dollar. And the dollar is pegged upon a lot of information about how the U.S. government, the success or failure or use of government instruments. And so I see that as a way to simply make sure that others around the world can buy into our system, put their money in a stable, as you say, stable currency, but it will still suffer the ravages of inflation and chaos. And so once again, as goes the dollar, so goes that. But it gives people, without causing a taxation event to happen, it allows them to use things. I mean, much of the world, including Africa and Asia, they don't have bank accounts. They don't have that ability. But as we learned a long time ago in 2008, the transformation to iPhones and the internet and the application of apps and just like now the blockchain, give someone their own account. And so there should be multiple applications. So it would be more like a bank. I have no problem with that.
For sure. I know there was some legislation put up by some folks to not allow the Fed to issue wallets directly to United States citizens and residents, where a CBDC or digital dollar could be injected into that wallet directly, but rather it would come through the commercial banks. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but do you agree with that setup where the Fed shouldn't have direct access, via wallet and distributing money in that way?
I believe that there are a number of significant issues related to what the Fed has authority to do. And I believe it will take our authority. We held a hearing a couple weeks ago, perhaps it's a month ago, about what authority the Fed has and what they don't have. And I believe that the Fed is going to have to come work with Congress to gain that authority and marching orders to move forward. And then it will be based upon us to then pass something. Now, you and I both know this, that we could pass something in the House and the Senate as Republicans that the president may not agree with. So this is part of the impediments, and that's why we encourage a big discussion about not just about what we believe, but where we think we want to go. And I think that this would be wildly in everybody's best interest to have these abilities.
Absolutely. Okay, Congressman Sessions, I got some wrap-up questions for you. If you could create your own metaverse, what would the theme be about?
Well, this metaverse is a very interesting thing. I grew up in a generation, but watched my boys as they had their games that they played and their headphone on and talking to people, perhaps 15 or 20 people that may be there or and perhaps in Denver, Colorado, on the internet, the ability to loop people in. I would say that I would see where the application, whether it is about investment opportunities, brokerage firms, creating ideas about things, is the next generation out there, where we have gotten used to waiting for it to be on what might be called years ago CNN. Now it's Fox. But they want objective news. So the problem is that if you're willing to take anybody's advice just on the fly, well, go for it. If you just want to stay up with something, go for it. So what mine would be about is how important it is for us to learn that we have responsibilities and authorities in our life. I'm an Eagle Scout, so I would talk about literally, and it's just not political, I don't mean it that way, how are we going to make our country better? How are we going to help take care of people? And ideas and generations of influence about research and development and technology have moved us a lot that way. So I want to talk about hydrogen fusion. I want to talk a lot about science and mathematical applications and grow the next generation to where people are just as interested in math and science in the future as they are Bitcoin, of forming the foundation of financial security and a legitimate way to make money, enrich our families and our people, but to make it lasting.
Sure. I have some rapid fire questions here for you.
Good, I got one for you too.
Oh. Favorite food?
By overwhelmingly beef. I love a good ribeye steak.
Me too. Favorite musician or band?
It'd have to be the Eagles, although I like some others, but I like Boz Scaggs, and I like the Charlie Daniels Band. And so.
Favorite movie?
Casino Royale.
That's a good one. Favorite book?
It would have to be Hans Morgenthau, Politics Among Nations, or Year of the Rat, which is by Timberlake.
And finally, when you're not doing your congressional duties, what are you doing as a hobby pastime?
Well, I try and stay in shape or scouting. I'm an Eagle Scout and enjoy scouting and teaching leadership and character building and getting to the outdoors. I've climbed around Mount Everest. I've climbed Mount Rainier in my past. I'd love to go to New Mexico to Philmont Scout Ranch and climb mountains. It gets a little bit harder. Believe it or not, you turn 50 and things become a little bit more difficult.
Congressman Sessions, pleasure chatting with you. Thank you so much for joining me.